Heyo, today in Planet Coaster we continue detailing the lower area of the Pharos and start a bit on planning the courtyard. So let's get into it. So we start off with the base of the Pharos of Alexandria, or the Pharos of Theonopolis right now. But this is also the place where I divert the furthest from reality. I mean, I already lost my own grasp of reality while building this, so it kind of makes sense. But in reality, or as it is depicted in how people and researchers think it looks like, the base is pretty much all white, no real decorations, there's no real, colors, and for the sake of it being in Theonopolis, I did add some colors, a little bit of decorations, like the minimal amount, just because otherwise, if I kept it completely white, well, I wouldn't call it bare, but completely like the less is more tactic, it would stood out like a sore thumb in Theonopolis, because Theonopolis is more colorful. It has the painted pillars, it has the painted, well, not roofs, but actually also not statues. Most of the statues are also just white. But Theonopolis on itself is just a little bit more colorful. So if I placed an all white building, yeah, that would just stand out like a sore thumb. And I still, I want it to be real, but I also want it to fit in with Theonopolis. So that's why there are some changes in the building, but it's still very less is more. I'm just going to call it that, just to give a little bit of an homage to what the building really looks like. And besides that, there's also another point where the building diverges from reality, because in reality the middle part where the windows is kind of follows the contours of the building, the slanted contours, and I didn't really want to do that. So for me, those windows are just straight down. They are slanted with the walls, but not slanted in like the contours of the building. So that's probably the two biggest diversions from reality, but it still works. And also you wouldn't really see the difference with, let's say, the windows, because the windows were straight down. It's just that the area that they were in was slanted outwards to follow the contours of the building or the base. Also a diversion, but that's just because Blanco, and I didn't really go into that when I started building. But the building is, I think, 88 meters. The original is like 130 to 150, I think, somewhere around there. That was like the original height of the building. So in Blanco here, it's 88 meters from like the top of the statue to the foot of the building. So it's like 3/4 of the original size, and that's why, well, that's not why some things are different. It's just scaled down, so things shouldn't really be different if you scale things down. But I just try to find an excuse for any small alteration to the building. But yeah, in reality, it would have been a lot higher, but just for Blanco scale, if I wanted to make it like the original height of the building, the original complete size of the building, it would take probably like half or at least a quarter of the entire Blanco map. Yeah, the building was actually quite large. Well, I think it was given that the building was large. I mean, it's in honor of Alexander. Like, you don't want to build something small to Alexander. But I do get, in a way, why the building, or at least the base, and the courtyard building or the surrounding buildings were a little bit more bare bones, a little bit less decorated, because those buildings were most chance of getting into contact with seawater, which is salty, it erodes things. So if you want to have like a lot of decorations on the base, within a year that would probably be not fully intact anymore, because the seawater would just wash things away, like paint or statues. If you had like statues as decoration on that lower area, the sea would just go wild with it. And it's still that the Grecians, or the architects behind it, would know that. Like, they would not pump money into something that they knew would be gone in like a year, or would be in severe need of repair in a year. They wouldn't do that, or at least I don't think they would do that, because, well, if things cost a lot of money, then people will riot. I mean, we still do that. If like the government plops down a huge building with almost, well, not almost, but no real direct consequence to the people, and it costs a shitload of money, people are going to get angry. So that was still true that time. So yeah, that's probably why the lower areas are maybe a little bit bare bones, but this is just an assumption. This is not a fact. This is just my opinion on that matter. It's just what I think could have happened or could have been the factor behind that decision. So don't take this as fact. But for me, it is annoying that the lower part isn't as well decorated or isn't as decorated as the upper part, just because I want the building to have a lot more boom factor. But I guess there is some beauty in less is more, though I am certainly, after building all these things, I certainly just want a lot of decorations. I want a lot of things on it. That's just my building style. So it is in a way weird to build something completely out of reference, completely trying to stay true to what the original building would have looked like. And even though there are some alterations because it's Blanco, it's in a park, it needs to shoot the park, so there are some alterations, but still it's weird to build to reference, or at least not divert far from the original reference. For me at least, that's weird. I don't know if that is for you guys. Comment down below if it is weird for you guys. But anyway, there are two entrances to the building, like a front door, back door, or just two doors with a little bit of a staircase, which I tried to get like a good reference from like how people would have entered the building, and this is what mostly came up, so I tried that. Again, it's a little bit of like a minimalistic style, so I wasn't too happy with that again. Like I thought like, oh wait, maybe in the doors and just the front entrance they would have maybe a little bit more decorations. Not what I see from the depictions, so I was just like, maybe in the end I will add some decorations to the door, because you know there is like a few like two depictions that show a little bit more of an elaborate door, but then the rest don't really show that. And I guess the door is a little bit more of like an Egyptian style with just the block things. So maybe it's to draw from that inspiration of like a little bit more of a minimalistic Egyptian door. But I will see what I will do with that, because even if like everything is done, like the courtyard is done, the scenery to tie it in with Theonopolis is done, I might still come back and change it. Like my biggest critique of the lighthouse actually is that it's not tall enough to my taste. I just really wanted it to be a little bit taller to really just make you feel like an ant when you stood before it. So I'm not going to change that, because that would mean changing the entire building, and the building right now is 4 parts. So I would need to change 4 parts, which are each separate buildings, and that would just be a hassle not worth the end result. And it still is historically accurate in some way when it comes to scale wise, if you like scale it down. I think, like I'm saying that, but I try to make it completely historically accurate, but I think we have been on this discussion before, so I'm going to stop myself here. But then on to planning out the courtyard, which is probably the first time I ever planned out a building before I actually built it. So that was a first. But in a way it helped, because I knew how to build it, I knew where to place things. But in a way it was also annoying, because I had the constant urge to just change it a little bit, change the plan a little bit, change the size. And then, of course, there came the mayhem of the island that the Pharos sits upon, because I wanted to make that a little bit taller, or a little bit higher is probably the more correct phrase for that. And then when I made it higher, I was like, I want to make it even higher, so I just kept adding on more height to the island, which is in a way annoying, in a way good, because the Pharos, as I said, is made out of 3 parts. You have the courtyard or the surrounding buildings. You have 3 parts that are actually the tower itself. So to first put it into place was already kind of hassle. Luckily I had some pillars left that I could like make it so that if the pillars are merging in a way, then everything is in the right place. So if I move the Pharos, I could just go on that and really make it that that was correct and that then the entire Pharos was correct. And then when I added height, the easy thing about it was just, again, merging the pillars. But yeah, then I found out that one of the pillars actually shouldn't be completely merged. So if I merged it, the building would look weird. So I had to unmerge it. How many times can I say merge? And probably use a better phrase for that, but I'm not going to because I literally don't know any other way to phrase it. So for the Pharos to increase the height, well, not to increase the height of the Pharos, but to increase the height of the island, and then just plan out where the corners of the buildings are with some wooden pillars, which is also easy when you really build the building, because then, yeah, you just have a bit more of a reference point on where to go and where to, you know, have the entrance, where the towers should be. And I have seen depictions of the Pharos or the courtyard with like multiple towers, not only on like the corners, but also at like the entrance and the, well, between the entrance and the corners. And I just, for some reason, that didn't really suit with me. It was just like, alright, so the base of the Pharos is not elaborate, it's not really bigly decorated, but then suddenly you have all these towers on, well, the courtyard buildings, the surrounding buildings. So that was just a little bit weird, so I kept to some, well, most of the other depictions show just corner towers. So I just kept it to corner towers, and then with the entrance, most of the time it was not really a big entrance, it was just, well, basically a hole in the wall. So I kept with that also. But after that, it was just, you know, increasing the size, making sure everything was completely aligned. That was the most annoying part, because everything had to be somewhat symmetrical. Like, that was a big thing in Grecian architecture, to be a bit symmetrical, unless you're like adding stuff onto an existing building. If you are just building a building completely from the ground up, most of the time that would be symmetrical. Of course, there are exceptions, but to make this Pharos completely symmetrical, it was better to plan it out so that there wouldn't be some kind of, you know, mess up and something would be asymmetrical because of that. So yeah, in a way, it's also easy to build Grecian architecture because of that. Like, I get some comments to say like, oh, the building is amazing, but it's almost the same on every side. Like, I don't mean to downplay my building skills or anything, but it is a little bit easy. Like, you have a standard color format, which is usually white, or for like art and decorations, there are a little bit more colors, but usually it's white. And the building structure is usually a bit more, well, block shaped, like round buildings or like round domes. They were there, but they weren't really that much in use. So yeah, in a way, Grecian architecture is simple, but you can make it really elaborate, of course. And I always try to do that just to improve whatever skill I have, which isn't that much. And yeah, that is basically it for today. I hope you liked the video. If you do, I hope to see you back in the next one. And I wish you an amazing day. See you soon. Bye bye.